So, welcome, Hunter. It's so nice to see you again. And thank you for joining the Stuff That Growth is Made of. To help kick off our discussion with Hunter and all the things that you provided with to my group last month, I'd love for you just to share with the audience a little bit of your background.
Well, thanks, Margaret. As so many of us in our careers, kind of fell into this line of work. Was doing sales, and my boss was deathly afraid of public speaking, and so he drugged me to a Toastmasters group. I started giving presentations. A company saw me, said, we'll pay you to do that. So then I did a few. Then the attorney got sick and said, hey, you're going out and doing hiring and firing. I said, okay. And I went out, and it went so well that I've been doing it for a long time. Went back to school, got a degree in employment law. So it's been a wild ride.
So, and your background, you are an employment attorney, your background?
No, I have a master's degree in employment law.
Okay,
So
great.
I know more than most on employment law, not as much as an employment law attorney. And that way I can say things that they can't say.
And we love that. That's what makes it so interesting. But I also want to mention for the audience is that Hunter is a top performing speaker year over year, going back to 2006, I believe, and top requested speaker for Vistage. And he's in great demand outside of Vistage as well. I was just mentioning before we started that after the session a few weeks ago with my group, I know so many people were going to reach out and share their handbooks and ask questions. So I'm sure every time you speak, you get a ton of follow-on communication from the people that were there because it's such an engaging session.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's fun, and I'm sure the leaders that see me go back and then kind of unload on their staff. I do get all kinds of follow up, which is fun.
Yeah. So well, good. Well, so I thought what would be helpful over the next 20 minutes or so is really focus on some of the topics we covered, and you covered so many topics, and there's so many different topics that are HR related. But I think it's very interesting also to see, we had the CEOs in the room and we also had some of the HR directors. So their perspectives are also very different in terms of the lens that they're looking through these topics are. But so what I'd love to start with is, Hunter, from your perspective, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 HR related issues that are on CEOs' minds today?
Yeah, it's fun to see from the leadership team and their perspective, this retaining A players, retaining talent is probably top of mind. Some companies are still in a rush of growth mode, hiring, trying to find good people. Others are on efficiencies, anticipating a downturn, and so going through reduction in force. But wherever they are on that scale, this retention of talent continues to bubble up to the top. For a long time, HR was like, yeah, I got to go hear a guy about HR. Okay, fine. But boy, after COVID and the numbers, 9 million jobs, 6 million unemployed, it just became kind of a situation of math. So skilled labor, talent, really any industry has become a premium. So that's got to be, I think, number one. And then just dealing with all the various issues that people are bringing to the table. I mean, in the past, people had personal issues, mental issues, physical issues, all these things going on, but it was very much separate, And the leadership team was, I don't care, just come to work, do your job, shut up, go home. But now this whole concept of well-being, does the employee, are they doing okay with what's going on, and their personal well-being, mental health, psychological safety, whatever term you use, which also leads to this trust factor. The big question of, okay, why are so people so reluctant to come back to work is the employee experience that people are talking about now. Is it so bad, or was it so bad that it drove people away? And answering those questions individually for each company, how do we, if we're in that kind of mode, remote and flexible and all that, and some aren't, but those that are, okay, what can we do with the employee experience to make it a destination company for A players?
I love that. So the topics you just touched on, you can spend days talking about:
Yeah.
retaining top talent, trust factor, dealing with the various, well-being related type of issues, and the whole topic on how do we get people back, that employee experience. I think about, when I was at Ernst & Young, we always focused on the client experience. And I know something we talked about when you were with our group is they're kind of the same. You need to treat your employees and your potential employees as if they're clients.
Yeah,
So it's that same mentality.
Yeah, that's a big nugget there, and kind of aha. And I find those companies that have made that shift are in much better. They're really thriving through this. And that's that shift of treating employees as customers. They don't have to work for you. They don't have to stay. So why should they do business with you? What have you created that they don't want to leave? And thinking of them as customers. Why should they come work for you in the first place? Why should they stay? And by taking that kind of approach, then you start to go down a whole different path. Versus, if you don't come back to work on this date, I'll fire you. And an employee said, fine, I can go down the street. The command and control style leadership just doesn't work like it used to. So this shift to customers, I think you're right, is a critical move, and it helps, like I said, set everything in motion. Oh, then the interview is more like an audition. It's a sales meeting. Oh, and then this, and we can do this. And it leads to the employee experience. So it all starts to layer into place now.
Yeah, it does. And for me, that was one of the, again, it's so simple and it makes total sense, but that was one of the ha's I really walked away with. It's like, oh yeah, if we did this, makes total sense. And then everything changes around that. So in our meeting, and I want to come back to this topic in terms of how a company can differentiate themselves. But before that, in our meeting, we had both CEOs, presidents, and business owners, and then we also had a lot of their HR directors. So you just talked about, from a CEO perspective, what some of the top issues are. When you look at it through the lens of an HR director, does that change a little bit? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think so. For the longest time, a lot of companies, large and small, buried HR under finance, had them report to finance, so they never ever had to talk to them. Now, with what's happened, I can't find good people. I can't keep good people. What's going on with this? I got problems with this, all people related. And the HR really making the transition to say, hey, we're a resource to help you solve these people issues. That HR now is really earned their kind of seat at the table. HR is not financial, should not report to finance. HR is about maximizing your return on human capital. So there's a little bit of kind of a smile and a smirk for long-term HR going, aha, finally, you get it. Yeah. And then there's the challenge that the millennials and Gen Zs are bringing to the table, really pushing us to get our leadership act together. And if HR is done right, then it can really help incorporate, those values and the things you need to keep growing.
It could be actually that secret weapon in a way. So
yeah, and just and you've heard me say, if HR is not a profit center for you, you're doing it wrong. And that's taking the data and the information we have, what's it cost to replace someone, all these things that HR has been kind of beating on the drum for decades. Now all of a sudden, wow, where has this been? Well, we've been here in HR, but you weren't listening.
Yeah.
So now we've got their attention.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So going back to your last, what you mentioned before, So, from a company perspective, what are some of the top HR related topics or policies where a company can really differentiate themselves? And especially today, when it is about retaining talent, it is trying to get people to want to come back into the office, and feel that commitment to the company and their purpose and all that. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, one from kind of a leadership management side, and that's this definition of success. What we learned during COVID that we had defaulted leadership, gotten kind of lazy um, to line of sight. Okay, if I can see Margaret, then she must be doing her job, and I've managed her because she's there. And then when COVID hit, it was like, whoa, if they've got to be here for me to lead. And then we realized, well, wait a minute, maybe not. And then that led us to this, we really don't have a good definition of success. And so I've been pushing this idea throughout the leadership team, saying, what does success look like in this job, and how do you measure it? And what I found is that most people had no answer. Well, how can you hire someone? How can you promote someone? How can you evaluate performance or behavior if you haven't defined what success looks like and set up measurements? It's like, the old, you can't hold people accountable to standards you haven't communicated.
Right.
So on the leadership management side, this define success and how you measure it. And then the other side, the legal side, probably the hottest issue right now of concern, and should be for the leadership team, is this whole wage and hour, pay transparency, understanding exempt and non-exempt, treating those people differently in the workplace. That has become from the legal side probably our biggest vulnerability, biggest risk. And again, we didn't pay much attention. Many of these laws, the Fair Labor Standards Act dates back to 1938. So it's not like these quote unquote are new, but employees have discovered this. No more keeping salaries a secret. You'll have to post your job ranges. So on the leadership management side, defining success. On the legal side for employers, it's the wage and hour.
Interesting. Again, lots of and they're heavy duty topics. So thank you for sharing that. I also think about defining success, because you're not necessarily face to face bumping into people, things like that. I think another important piece that kind of aligns to that is what's that scoreboard or the dashboard? How do you keep how people are doing, how the organization is doing front and center, right? It's also around communicating. You need to think differently about how you communicate to your employees when you've got more people in hybrid situations.
Yeah, it's much more proactive, especially on the remote or even hybrid, that flexible model. I mean, if you look at employees as customers, I mean, the numbers are overwhelming. Employees want the flexibility. All right, how can I work that into certain jobs as much as I can? And then if I do that, all right, the only way the manager is going to feel comfortable is if they have a good handle on what does success look like, what are the productivity and behavior goals, KPIs that lead to success in this job. And then once you do that, whether you're hybrid, remote, or essential, and everybody's on site, everybody knows where they stand. There are no surprises.
Absolutely. And you know what? I know we talk about A players or high performing team members. They want to know how they're being measured. That's one of the things that's important to them. So they want to know, they want to be recognized for and so it's important to get. It goes back to the retaining. If you want to retain your best people, you need to communicate clearly what's expected of them, how they're being measured, and
yes,
and all of that.
How many of us who have critical customers ignore them? Oh, I'm not going to talk to the customer. No. They have questions. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to talk to the customer. No, we wait until we lose the customer. Whoa, then we talk to them. So you're right. It just makes sense. And this really goes to what most of us grew up in leadership. Deming, Drucker, Christensen. The foundation is about communicating these touch points with employees. We just kind of got out of the habit of doing that. Plus the numbers, my generation, the boomers, we provided almost an unlimited headcount for at least 2 decades. And so we didn't have to, as leaders, pay attention.
Yeah.
That's why I love millennials and Gen Zs. They're going to force us to pay attention. And I think we're all going to be better for it.
And the ongoing communication is important. So going from annual reviews or middle of the year, I'll give you an update, and then annual, it needs to be more often than that. And you need to really understand how your employee is doing and what you could do to take the obstacles away. So all of that kind of gets tied into that as well.
Yes, that's true. It all layers in together.
Yeah, good. So changing topics a little bit, but touching on something you mentioned earlier, and this is something I love, and actually it was a great topic in terms of our discussion, in terms of our meeting that we had with you, is, when you think about recruiting and onboarding, and someone brought up, or maybe you brought up, the reference to, some companies have these probation periods, but instead, when you're thinking of recruiting or onboarding, how do you focus on a job audition? How do you get them, how do you get them and you to experience what they're going to be like in the job that they're interviewing for? So is this something you go a little bit deeper in and maybe share some examples? I think it's a really important topic.
Yeah, if you start with the idea, okay, they're a customer, they don't have to take your job, so that they're interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them, then that kind of sets, we're on equal footing to get started. And so then, like we do with customers, we want to make it easy to do business with us. So in terms of, the interview, you think audition. The numbers are fascinating. Somewhere between 30 seconds and 3 minutes in, we've already made the decision. I like this person. This is, I think, a good match for us. And then we flip the switch, hit the button, and go, okay, now we're in the sales mode. Why should they come work for us? And have those kind of answers. And it's fun to see. When I point to the CEO and say, give me one good reason I should come work for you. And they rattle off opportunity, which everybody has, growth, how many people are hiring dead-end people for dead-end jobs. And they look at me and I say, yeah, I know, I'm really obnoxious, but you're going to have to think of this different. How do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
And so some of the fun ones, you'll have good Sunday nights. I mean, why should I come work here? You'll have good Sunday nights. And that immediately sends the message, oh, this is a different place to work. One woman who she runs a camp for kids with special needs. Her kind of marketing line is change the world one kid at a time. And so they really set up this, okay, this is how we're differentiated. And then you get the reputation that we've got your back from day one. And so then the next step you get them in is make sure they have a great first day. In the past, it's been like hazing. First, you have to pee in a cup. Then, we're going to question your ancestry. Then go in a dark room, read a handbook. Then we'll let you go to lunch. You figure out it's probably 3 miles walk before you get to lunch, but we don't care. Nobody else is going to take care of you during lunch. You better learn how to get your own lunch. Then we're going to more meetings and other stuff the first day. And then we're going to put you on probation. Because this is what we do with crummy people. We don't even know you when we're going to put you on probation. We're watching you. And then we said, come back tomorrow. And you're like, why? I mean, if the first day isn't one of the best days, it's only going to go downhill. And so it's like, stop. There's legal pressure. If you're non-union, no good reason for the probation or introductory period. Second, it sends this horrible message that we don't trust you, we don't like you, we do a lousy job of interviewing because we don't have your back. And then the phone call, and that's the end result. You go home after your first day, you're going to get texts, you're going to get calls from family. How was your first day?
Yeah.
And
Horrible.
yes, and if you
Yeah.
say no, it was great. These are good people. I made the right choice. It's not about the employer here. The customer makes the call. I made the right choice because the supervisor met me first thing in the morning. We went into meetings. I had lunch with one of the division heads. I'm going to meet with all 5 this week. We had a party with the remote people and with the people on site. It was a great first day. I made the right choice. Now, the next day, yes, you got to pee in the cup. You've got a I-9 form. You got to do all the things that technically, but not the first day.
Yeah.
And those are
It's so true.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and I was just going to say those are the things that really separate. And now everything's so open. So even on Glassdoor, you'll get reviews on how you're interviewing. Imagine if your interviewing process, even if you don't hire this person, is a positive experience.
It's so interesting as you're talking. I think about it's just the perfect opportunity to embed your purpose and your core values into every step of the way, right? So the audition, if you will, so they could experience, you could see them in action, they could experience what it's like to be part of the company. And you're right, onboarding, as you're saying that, I'm smiling, so I'm thinking, oh gosh, I've been at several companies and that's what it was. It's 2 weeks of all filling out paperwork, all of those type of things, and not necessarily feeling that personal touch and one-to-one. So I think those are such great points. The other thing that comes to mind as you're talking about is, and I should have thought of getting some of the facts on this right, but maybe you're familiar with it. But Zappos is a great example of a company that they do this audition. And in fact, after the first 6 weeks or whatever that is of this training and being on the phone and experiencing, regardless of what level you're coming in at, you still go through the same type of process. They will give a new employee $3,000 to actually leave if
Yes.
they feel it's not the right thing. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting way of that. Again, wrong word because we don't want to use it with probation, but is this the right place for you? And is this the right place for us with you? It's got to be the right fit. And I love that they make it not a negative experience. They make it a fair experience or a positive experience, if you will.
Yeah, if you don't think this is the right place for you, get out now.
Because it's not going to help any of us.
It isn't. And so yes, and that's that whole idea of treating it like a customer, making professional business adult type conversations and decisions without playing all these games. And it's fun to see companies that embrace it.
Yeah. And it's much more efficient and effective for everyone. So yeah,
it does.
So a last question I have, because I just want to be cognizant of time. And I know we could talk about all this stuff for a long time. What other insights or what I would say critical success factors that you think leaders in our audience should be thinking about around HR policies and focus?
Oh, good question. As in terms of policy, as best you can get out of the babysitting business. A lot of the handbooks and the policies were developed 10 20 30 years ago. Some are just outright against the law, like we keep salaries a secret at this place of work. Others are just in the probationary period, you fold bereavement into your PTO, so you're not trying to track who died and getting documentation. Workplace romance. There's just all kinds of better ways now to set up a corporate culture that will simplify, make it easier for your managers. And this and we've talked about it, but this sense of safe space, of trust. I get so many leaders that say, "Oh, I get great information at the exit interview," and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Because that's not the place to get great information.
Right.
It's just
Too late.
Yes, I had somebody the other day go, the stay interview. This makes so much sense. Have the conversations before they leave. I said, thank you. And so it honestly, it's not that hard to separate ourselves. Let me rephrase that. It's not that complicated to separate ourselves from most employers, but it is hard work. So it really a question of focus and saying, okay, given the numbers and where we are now, I really need to focus on my A players, creating an atmosphere where good people want to thrive, and really developing my HR brand. We all have a brand and reputation for our business and service. We also have an HR brand, and we haven't been focusing on it. And now what the customers, employees are saying, okay, yeah, you better focus on your brand. Is this a place where I want to come to work and stay? Is it a place where I want to come to work and be productive and part of the team?
So again, there's so much there. I love, again, when you go back to retaining talent, I love the connection of the stay interview, whether you do it, it's a few questions you ask monthly or quarterly. I think that's so important. And the HR brand, how many people are really thinking about what is your HR brand? How do you come across? What are you known for in the market? And how are you keeping that alive with your core values and your purpose? So, oh man, so many really good things. Thank you for that. And it sounds so simple, but I know it's not. And there's a lot. So, but so thrilled you have agreed to spend time with us today, Hunter. And besides spending time with Vistage Groups, can you share with the viewers what else you focus on? And if they wanted to reach out with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, the best way is you can go on hunterlott.com. I do a weekly take five kind of video, just taking a current topic and okay, here's what's going on right now. Here's what to look for. I've got a retention or a service where I'm on retainer for that I keep limited to the right number of employees so that they can call and I'm another set of eyes and ears. So it all fits in this HR space, which where I've been for over 40 years now.
Yeah, no, you are just, I tell you, already, I said my numbers, can you come back? When can we get him back here? I'm like, okay, I'll get him on the
I know
radar screen.
it was great. One Vistage member, I've seen you 5 times. I said, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, no, I learned something new every time. So that was a real compliment.
Yeah, and it's such an important topic. So,
It is.
first of all, thank you for your time. This is the stuff that growth is made of. So, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Margaret.